Welcome to the Thought Brothers. I'm Gary Johnson, aka Mr. Producer. We have a special guest tonight. This is where the Thought Brothers go round by round with one of our guests, and we have a special guest, author Jessica Tiller. She's also a publisher. She's going to tell us more about herself. So Jessica, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to turn it over to our financial analyst, Mr. Perlman. Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. Okay.
Hey, Jessica, how you doing?
Good. Let's see, where do I start? It's been
You used to have a job and then you quit it.
Okay, so I wrote my first book, Anything Goes, in 2000. And shortly thereafter, I met Mr. Gary Johnson. In 2001, I started my company, The Writer's Assistant. And actually how it started was, and I don't even care if he hears this, I was married at the time. And so my ex-husband, now ex-husband, told me that I could not use the household funds for printing and all of everything I needed to do. I needed to get a graphic designer. I needed a book formatter. I needed everything. And it can be costly. And so I decided, well, I don't, it's okay. I started a Joe Corby's Pizza fundraiser. I got all of my girlfriends, everyone I knew, to take order forms to their job and get orders. And he came home one evening and the living room was jam-packed with boxes of pizza. And I fundraised about $10,000. So I was able to cover the cost of printing. For 500 books back then was close to $3,000. But I decided I wanted to learn how to design book covers, format the interior, and create my own website, because I strongly believe I was getting into a business and you need to know every area of the business in which you're getting into. And I wanted my book to stand side by side on the shelves of Barnes and Noble and other major chains with those books published by the majors, the big five up in New York. And so, close your ears, Bill. I downloaded bootleg software.
Maybe a statute of limitations. Well,
listen, back then you could download a whole lot of stuff. Can't do it so much now, but so I downloaded the software I needed and I taught myself how to design a book cover. I studied it. I taught myself how to format a book. In fact, I used Terry McMillan's Waiting to Exhale as a guide. And on the copyright page, the publisher had the font they used. So I searched the internet for that font, downloaded it, bam. And then I needed a website. And I was crying to Gary because I didn't know how to do a website. So Gary gave me a bootleg copy of Microsoft Front Page, which works a lot like Microsoft Word, actually. And I got that software and that was it. And I just going nonstop. And at the time I was working in corporate America. And so 4 years into publishing my book and doing the writer's assistant, I had other authors asking me who did my formatting, who did my cover design. Oh, I did it. Next thing I know, I got a little part-time gig. I'm formatting books and designing a book cover for people, and that the writer's assistant. And then when was it? December 7th, 2004, I was downsized from a company where I'd worked for 10 years. I called Gary on the way home in tears. He said, "What are you crying for?" I just lost my job. I got a mortgage. He said, "You also already have a business. Now you can work it full time." And I wiped my tears, and I've been doing the writer's assistant for 20 years full time. However, in 2009, I had a girlfriend that hit me to Minority Business Enterprise Certification. So I changed the company name from the writer's assistant to the acronym TWA Solutions and Services. And so I've been full steam ahead. Now, let me back up. In 2006, I opened my publishing company to aspiring authors. And by 2015, I had about 85 authors on my roster. In 2008, a year after my mom died, I won the Independent Publisher of the Year Award from the African American Award Show. And in 2016, I decided I haven't put out a book. I haven't put out a book in a while. I need to focus on me. So it was either Xpress Yourself Publishing, my publishing company, and all my authors, and TWA Solutions. And at the same time, I was taking care of a father with dementia. So I decided that it was time to reduce my roster, and I did. I reduced it down to 3 authors, and now it's just me and Bill Holmes. And Indiscretions is my first book that I've released since 2015.
Wow. Miss Jessica, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot. How did all this get started? What made you want to get into becoming an author, becoming the writer's assistant? What made you want to just take care of all these people and help promote their careers while you were promoting your own? I mean, what is the catalyst to get this thing moving?
So I was sitting in my living room on the sofa. I've always been an avid reader. And I was reading Home Court Advantage by, her name escapes me, Patrick Ewing's, I don't know if it's still his wife or ex-wife, but
okay.
she wrote a book with another basketball player's wife.
Mm.
And I don't know, I just got the bug. I was like, I'm gonna give this a try. And I was going through issues within my marriage, and that was an escape for me. And I just started writing whatever came off the top of my head. And unfortunately or fortunately, what rolled off the top of my head was sex, and more sex, and drama.
Well, all right.
And then, but let me answer the second part. With the writer's assistant, well, now with TWA Solutions, I don't do too much promoting. I'll help authors, but what I do is I handhold them through the process of book publishing, self-publishing from A to Z. I do editing, book cover design, formatting, web design. Dr. Claude Anderson is one of my clients, and he has been for a few years, and I maintain his website and whatever else, his books, the Black History Reader and Powernomics. And so I had a hand in all of that. So it's just been fun. I've got a client roster of maybe about 500. Wow. And I absolutely love it. I have no social life, but it's okay. I have my computer and my dogs, and I'm fine. But yeah, I really love what I do. And for a minute there, I lost my passion for writing. And I joined, actually, I was forced to join during COVID, a writers group called the Carolina Forest Authors in Myrtle Beach. And a few of them are my clients. And it was during COVID. They said, well, we're going to meet online now, so why don't you come on? And that was in 2020, and I'm still in there. But they've really helped me and ignited that fire under me to write again. So,
I always try, it looks like you live here in Maryland. I'm not sure which county in Maryland, but I have a 501c3 that is called the Fairmont Heights Football Alumni Association. And the reason it has that Football Alumni Association is one to really honor the past and motivate the current high school football athletes to want to do something, be part of something great. strive for excellence on and off the field. Okay. So a lot of people say, we only focus on sports. No, that's 50%. The other 50% is in the classroom, because 99.99% will never make the NFL or NBA or the pro leagues. But this is their first job of learning how to work with people. But they need to know how to write. They need to be great students in English. They need to know how to communicate. They need to know how to calculate. They need to know how to, all these vital skills to run a business. Because you just mentioned like several skills you needed to do just to get this business going and keep it going. What is your advice for some young people who say, hey, I want to be like Miss Jessica. I want to write some books. I want to own my own company. Where do they start?
First, research. Anything you're about to get into, you have to research. I choose my words carefully. There are a lot of people who get into the book publishing business and don't do their research. There are a lot of people I come across who write books and have never read a book. And I can tell by their writing. So I'm, pretty much rewriting stuff. But so research is the number one thing. And then don't be afraid to ask people for help. There are a lot of people like you, like me, like everybody else out here, like Gary. Listen, when I got in this business, I was up. Listen, I was like a little Olivia clinging on to Gary every time. I never turned around. There was Jessica. I was like, Gary I was like their little pesky sister. But I didn't have anybody else. And Gary was always willing to lend a hand and help me and guide me. And that's what you have to do. But you definitely got to research. And don't get into writing a book if you haven't read one or can't write a complete sentence.
Amen to that. A lot of people, and just some of my experiences in life, on and off the job, business plans. I listen to WTOP on the way to work in the morning, and it seems like when that business report comes on, most businesses fail because they have poor business plans. A lot of people want to start a business, but they don't want to do the research. They don't want to know what it takes to be successful. I remember speaking to a guy who finally got a small business started, and I asked him, I said, well, how many units do you have to sell every day to pay the bills? He couldn't tell me. He couldn't tell me at all. Like he was like, I'm glad I got my business, but I'm like, so if you have a slow day, how long before you go out of business? He didn't know, and he went out of business like 90 days later. Like he couldn't figure it out. So I think the key is preparation. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I thought about that today. I thought about how blessed I am to 20 years full time. Never taking a break, having to get a job or anything like that. I don't stress and worry about client work. I'm constantly busy. I mean, in fact, before my feet hit the floor, good morning, God, can you send me some clients today, please? New clients. I don't do a lot of promoting. All of my business is word of mouth. And it's just,
it's working.
Now, as far as a business plan, I didn't do one either.
Hey, well, I tell you what, a smart man once told me. He said, he asked me, what does it take to be successful in the business world? And I said, you have to be very good. He said, you got to be good and lucky. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, you can be the best person in the world at whatever you are trying to pursue, but you still got to have a little luck because things don't always go your way. And I was like, wow, man. I think about some of the things that people have told me over the past, and I think about the path you just said you've been on. And, obviously it's impressive. And I wish you much continued success. I just think that we need to reiterate to anyone who wants to start a business that they have to do research. I mean, if you don't do research, it's going to be almost impossible to be successful.
Absolutely. And then, I pay attention to what everyone else does. And, sometimes what they do just doesn't work for me. And then sometimes it does. I remember when I was formatting books, I was charging 99 cents a page. And I was contacted by, it wasn't someone on the Obama campaign. Who was before Obama?
Bush?
Bush.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they needed some type of report formatted. They Googled, they found me, and the guy called me and he told me who he was. And he said, I have a question. I said, sure. He said, why are you charging 99 cents per page? And I said, well, a lot of my clients, majority of my clients are self-published authors, and it's really, expensive. And so he said, yeah, but we pay $15 a page. I said, I go out of business if I charge $15 a page. But I listened and I no longer charge 99 cents. Didn't do 15, but I did $2.50 a page.
All right.
Yeah. So I love this business. I love what I do.
Well, I wish you much continued success. I mean, thank you for giving us that background. Thank you for dropping that key nugget of preparation. People, do you hear me? Young, middle-aged, and more mature. Please prepare. Because if you're not prepared, woo, it's gonna be a rough run. But thank you, Miss Jessica. I guess I will pass the baton. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Mr. Spivey so we can let CJ bring it home at the end. What's up, Mr. Spivey? What you got for us, Miss Jessica?
Well, the only thing I got is I'm gonna probably place a call at the end of the podcast regarding somebody using illegal materials to start a company. And so I probably need to make that call first. But how you doing, Jessica?
It's
fine, been a long time.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed. I've been reading I guess you call it the preference for your books. And I don't know which one I want to buy from Amazon because Indiscretion sounds like it's hot and everything. But then I was reading about Loving Simone, and I see that this lady has a husband who's an accountant and apparently gives her everything she wants, but she seems like there's not enough. So she got to go out and get a side piece. And then I'm looking at the Loving You and listening to the things going on with that. But I wanted to ask you, out of the 3 books, which one do you like the best? Loving You, Loving Simone, or Indiscretions? And I know Indiscretions is your most recent.
Yeah. Loving You. Loving You is smaller page count. It's about 85 pages. Okay. Loving You was actually a short story that I wrote and submitted to another publisher, Peace in the Storm Publishing. And it was due on November 15th, 2007. And that was the day my mom died. And I hadn't finished the story. The publisher, bless her heart, I need it, Jessica. I've got to go to print. And I was like, well, I said, well, just leave me out of it. Well, I was the only seasoned author in the anthology. So my story was leading off the anthology. So went down in the sub-basement, my computer, and I scrapped what I had originally written, and I wrote Loving You. And Loving You is it's called Julian's Grace, but the short story is Julian's Grace. It's a story of Grace who's dying of cancer, and it all takes place in a hospital room. And her husband, Julian, is, of course, he's having a hard time letting her go. And I swear I cried the whole time I wrote that, and smoked a pack of cigarettes, and I'm not a smoker. And the next morning, my chest was so tight, so no more smoking for me. But it was just, that day I took my mom off the ventilator, and then I got to write this story. Well, it ended up being pretty much a really good story. It got rave reviews. And then I decided, I'm going to expand it, maybe not to a full novel, but a novella. And I think that's my best because I really put my heart in it. It's not erotica. It's loving. It's passionate. and it deals with losing someone you love.
I read that in the preface, that
Mhm.
Grace was gravely ill and she was terminal, and
Yeah.
she had basically accepted it, but her husband couldn't accept it. That was interesting. One other thing, you talked with Carlos about someone starting out. A thing that I noticed is you wrote over 50 books as a ghostwriter. Uh, what do you think about someone? Do you think that that's a path they should start to get to know the business as a ghostwriter before going into publishing for themselves?
If you have not written and put out several books yourself, you don't need to try to write books for anyone else. You really have to learn the craft of writing. Majority of the books I ghostwrite are nonfiction. I've done a couple of fiction, but majority of them are nonfiction. And you really have to know how to craft a story. You have to know all the elements, description, it's background, how to put yourself in. For example, if it's a memoir, I'm ghostwriting. I really have to, when I'm working on it, I have to put myself in that person's place and become that person so that I can sound like them and emote the same feelings and emotions that they emote during our conversations. So I would suggest get a couple of books under your belt before you do that. Ghostwriting is not cheap. So, when you minimum 15,000. Although I don't charge that much, but the minimum, I undersell myself quite a bit, but it's okay. I keep my clients come back and come back. I have clients that have been with me for 20 years. But you should really have a few books under your belt before you write for other people.
So you have a good business model, because one of the things I learned years ago when I was in business, if you treat people right and you don't gouge them and take advantage of them, they're going to tell a lot of people, and your business will thrive off of word of mouth. But if you treat people wrong and you bend them over, they're going to tell twice as many people. And so you have a good business model. And so you will be successful. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let CJ take over.
Sure. My question was going to be more on the creative side, basically of how do you go about creating interesting characters and interesting plots, for to be consistently this successful. Where do the inspiration for just the character building, the character writing, and the plots come from? Is it like, so you kind of touched on it before? Is it more kind of real world inspiration, or where does the character work come from?
So I am what you call a pantster, which means I write by the seat of my pants. The first thing that comes off the top of my head, that'll be my opening sentence, and I build on that. A lot of my characters, I have friends that say, don't say anything around Jessica, it's going to end up in a book, and it does. And I have a lot of friends that will see themselves as characters in my book. Gary has ventured in a few of my books. And I just really as I start that first line, CJ, and I have my glass of wine, the lights turned off, and all I have is the glare from the computer screen. And I just kind of disappear, if you will, and let whatever character come to me and just let them tell me what to do. Sometimes I'll have dreams. They'll come to me in a dream, and I'll get up, it'll be 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'll come in and start writing. And I just let the characters build now that's when I'm working on my first draft. I'm not thinking, I'm just letting it go. And then after I'm 200 and some pages in, I stop, I go back, I do a rewrite, then I focus on the story, on the flow, on character development, on description, making sure that CJ has locks in chapter 1, but he doesn't have blonde hair in chapter 3, that kind of thing. It just comes natural. And one of the things though I'm really gonna try not to do is just write so much sex. And I remember when I wrote my first book, Anything Goes, both my parents were living, and I read the book to them. They were sitting in the living room.
Come on, Jessica. Let it go. Let it go.
And I read the book to them. And my mother, my mother was very quiet, very, Southern Belle. And my father was like, and he said, after I was done, I read a few chapters. I said, well, what do you think? I was really excited. My father said, did you publish that? I said, yeah. What do you think? He said, did you do all that stuff you describe in the book? I said, no, Dad. Where did it come from? It's just, I don't know. I watch TV. I listen to people talk. I read a lot. And he said, okay, but do you have to cuss so much? He said, I've never heard complete sentences with cuss words flowing through it like that. And then I just said, okay. I said, well, Dad, you don't know. He said, oh, I don't know. And my mother said, well, my father's name was Jesse, but everyone called him Jackie. Well, Jackie, if she woke up and decided that's what she wanted to write about, well, okay. But your tenses, honey, are mixed up. You don't have present tense and past tense in one book. You just got to fix that. Only dialogue is in present tense. She started scolding me. So I just, I don't know. I digress. You got to reel me in, CJ. But I just write whatever comes to me. And then when I do my rewrites, then I worry about structure and making sure everything. In fact,
she's magical.
I'm sorry. 1 second.
She just disappeared. Y'all see that?
So this was the first cover. Okay. No, can't see it.
I'll put you send it to me.
I'll send it to you.
I'll put it up into the show.
That cover, I designed like 5 or 6 different covers. I'm very hard on myself. Creatively, I can design a cover for you in an hour and you'll love it. But me, I'm very hard on myself. But I got the proof for Indiscretions and I thought I was done. And actually, as I read through it, I changed chapters around. I was like, no, this doesn't make sense. It's just, I don't know. I just love that. I just love being creative and just making up stories. And now I'm working on a sci-fi. Well, I've never done, I don't know anything about sci-fi, but you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. Maybe a little sci-fi with sex in it. I don't know.
Hey, Jessica, if they made Soul Plane, you can make a sci-fi. You'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But as far as character development and how I get my characters, they just come to me. And I don't do outlines or anything like that. It just stays with me.
That's so it's actually not too dissimilar to the songwriting process, honestly, in terms of like say kind of letting it flow, letting the creative process take you and then going back and structuring it and to what it needs to be in terms of, like you said, for you, it's like, chapter structures and things like that, making sure characters have enough lines and balanced out. It's very similar to making a song. So that's why I really wanted to pick your brain for that creative process. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to outline because then I'll feel stifled. I tried outlining once and I ended up tossing it out the window. I felt really stifled, and I just want my characters to tell the story. And sometimes I get so lost. I'll start writing 7 o'clock in the evening. It'll be 5 o'clock in the morning before I go to bed because I'm just so engulfed in the story. And sometimes what I write can be very like um, loving you. Uh, that was deep. That was deep. A couple of times I had to get up and walk away from the computer because it was just so, whew, it was just so, it brought back a lot of memories about my mom, of course, but it was just so deep. And there's a story I'm working on now, tentatively titled The Cornfield. And it's the story about um, a woman whose mother passed during birth. The father was so distraught, he removed all reminders of the mother from the house, pictures, clothes, you name it, jewelry, put it up in the attic and forbade his daughter to ever go into the attic. Well, the father is Irish American and the mother is African American. Well, the girl doesn't know her mother is African American. She doesn't even know her mother's side of the family. Well, one day she closes up her boutique and it's Halloween, which was the day she was born. There are trick-or-treaters all about, and she lives in a little town called Willow Creek. I'm starting to make up my own towns now. And she ventures out and she sees a little girl with a floppy hat, an oversized dress, a lot of makeup on, and she's walking towards the cornfield. She calls out to her and says, "Hey, little girl, where are you going?" "Going to find my friends." "Well, where are your friends?" "Over there." And she darts into the cornfield. Well, Amelia, my character, darts into the cornfield after her. She catches up with the little girl. They have dialogue, and the little girl runs off. Amelia's following her because she wants to make sure it's dark. It's getting dark. She wants to make sure she gets home. Well, when she walks out of the cornfield, Amelia isn't in Kansas anymore. She's in 1923. In Willow Creek, 1923. And so she follows this little girl. Every time she goes into the cornfield to go home, she steps outside of the cornfield. She's in another time in this young girl's life, all up through adulthood. No one can see her but the little girl. The little girl's like, "Why are you following me? What's going, that kind of thing." No one can see her. But eventually, in the end, now this all might change. It might change because Amelia might tell me, "I don't think I want to go that route, Jessica. Let's go another route." But in the end, she learns that that's her mother because she's going to see that the little girl is now a woman and she meets the love of her life. And she's like, "That's my dad." But I'm dealing with time travel. So,
Yeah, sci-fi
yeah,
is awesome.
yeah,
Very, very Lovecraft country
Wow.
kind of thing going on
yeah,
there.
exactly. I'm ready to spread my wings and just delve into different genres. And, the whole, uh, what do you call it? Um, Gone are the days where the Lifetime channel and the Netflix and all these streaming channels are only for authors published by major publishers, by major publishing houses.
Mhm.
There are a lot of independent authors out here writing scripts, doing their thing, they're doing their research, they're learning how to do it, how to submit, and they're getting their stories on Lifetime, on BET, on whatever. I belong to stage32.com, and there's a ton of screenwriters in there and producers, and I'm just like a fly on the wall. I'm learning because I'm going to be one of those independent authors to turn my books into a script and write my treatment and pitch decks and all of that stuff that I've learned and submit.
That's perfect because that was going to be my next question is were you going to try to branch out to any other mediums? A specific medium I really love is actually comic books. Have you ever explored comic books for your writing or maybe collaborating with an artist to explore that medium?
Well, other than the crates of comic books that belong to my 63-year-old brother that's stored down in the basement, no, I've never been into comic books, reading comic books.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know there's a lot of different subcultures of comic books other than just like superheroes and things like that. So like I said, you can
Oh,
it's just another medium to tell a story. So yeah, it's more of like you still have a strong writing aspect, but
write
you
that
still you
down.
collaborate with these great artists and kind of just brings the books to life in a very different way. I'm just always been a big fan of all types of comic books because like I said, they extend far beyond, like Batman and Superman and stuff. There's comics about all
Hmm,
types of things and adaptations of novels that have become comic books, even things like Dune and Game of Thrones, those like big epic novels of a lot of people have
really?
turned into comic books. They collaborate with artists. So I just thought it was interesting if you have ever thought about collaborating with an artist to maybe even bring some of your books to life. And
Honey,
maybe
with
a Barb, even though
AI,
they
you
might be a
don't
little
need
too
an
spicy.
artist. With AI, you,
That's right.
you
You're
know,
right about
that
that.
is an excellent. Thank you, CJ. I wrote down what you said. I'm gonna look into that. That's not a bad idea. I can turn indiscretions into comic book. Well, children, it would be for adults only.
Yeah, and then they do. They have adult only comics. That's what I say. It's comics for everybody.
Hmm.
Most comic books in the market are actually for adults.
Mm-hmm. But one thing I don't do is limit myself. So I'm gonna try that. I'm definitely gonna look into that.
Yeah, that's one thing people don't think about because people assume most comic books are for kids because superheroes are kind of like the biggest genre of comics, but most kids don't like to read. Let's keep it real outside of they
Yeah.
get forced to read in school, so that's not the biggest purveyor of buyers of comic books.
Mhm.
Kids aren't lining up to go buy books these
That's
days,
true.
unfortunately.
That's
So
true. Well, I am going to write a children's book. I do want to write children's books under Jessica Wright, which is my Wright is my maiden name. I don't think my Tillis fans like children's books, but I want to do children's books. Mainly about dogs, because I have 4 characters here that just keep it lively in this house. And so yeah. And then I want to do also with children books. I would love to do a children's book about publishing, because there are a lot of young people who are writing books. And so I would love to do a children's educational series on book publishing.
Well, I can tell you, Jessica has helped a lot of people in the industry. I would not have published my first book had it not been for her. So I figured, all those years you were on me, here we go, payback. Come on, you got to help me out. And she did.
Yeah.
And she did. As a matter of fact, I have a book signing this week on Saturday. Still doing it.
Wow.
Still
You
selling,
think you're
still
gonna
signing
update it?
books.
You don't think you need to update it with an updated cover?
Well, I guess so now.
That's
Oh,
good,
that's in
Jerry.
the future, but
Yeah.
yeah, but all right. And of course, you all know who's going to be doing my cover. So got that squared away. But here's the thing that I know about Jessica, having known her for over 2 decades and been on the road and traveled with her. Nobody will outwork her. She's got a work ethic second to none. Nobody is going to outwork her. She'll find a way to get it done, and she'll find a way to have fun doing it. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's the big key. Nobody's going to outwork you.
yeah. No is not in my vocabulary. I've had clients or people to come and ask me if I can do such and such. I ain't never done it before in my life. I said, sure, I can.
Right.
And I research and I, figure out how to do it and realize how easy it is. So I know it's not in my vocabulary, which is always not a good thing, but
All right, fellas.
Well,
Let's go final round. Let's go final round here with Miss JT.
Well, I expect to see indiscretions from what I read, just the cover of it. I expect to see that on Netflix or somewhere. And you were talking about the book with the child that you're working on. I just checked it. You might want to go to Netflix. There's a movie on Netflix with Morgan Freeman, and it's called 57 Seconds. And it's very similar to what you were talking about. And this young kid, Morgan Freeman, I haven't looked at the movie, but I looked at the trailer. And apparently he has some kind of power. And he touches this kid. And whenever this kid gets the power, he's able to do these phenomenal things. And he tells his girlfriend about Morgan Freeman and about this power that he has that Morgan Freeman has given him. And he and his girlfriend get into a spout because she says, is that what you used on me to get me? So it's really interesting. So you may want to check that out. And it'll give you some follow-up for your book with this young lady going into the cornfield.
Thank you. I will. And also now that I know what your former profession is, when I get into writing mysteries and I need to know when it comes to, what do you call it? I don't want to say it, officer stuff.
Jessica, I can give you a ton of information.
That's what I'm talking
that
about.
I did in 25 years.
Wow.
And it's funny because, we, my wife and I, we look at a lot of shows, a lot of the crime shows, all of the SUVs and the FBI International, and then we look at FBI Most Wanted. And we always make a joke about it because in all of the shows, when the FBI is getting ready to arrest somebody, they always holler FBI from a block away, give them a chance to start running. And so we make a joke about it. We see them get out of the car and they'll say, that's him across the street. And they holler FBI and then everybody breaks out running. So it's just the small things like that.
Yeah.
That, if you're putting stuff in a book, you go into a house and you're going to do a search and it's daytime, but you're using flashlights, that type of thing. And you see it on a lot of the shows. So yeah, if you're doing something like that,
crazy.
I'll be more than glad to help. Sometimes I wonder what advisors and people that they have on some of these shows, because some of the stuff that you see, if people just thought about it, it's just totally out of whack.
Yeah.
And you would never see that happen in real life in law enforcement.
Okay, well, thank you, Bill.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay, I got you.
Hey, Miss Jessica, I forgot to ask you one question. Since you are in this business and know it very well, what did you think about that Jeffrey Wright movie, American Fiction, when he was Monk? Did you ever see that movie that came out?
I saw that. I love that movie. Let me just say, I love Jeffrey Wright. He's we have the same last name. We're no kin, but I always say he's my play cousin. I really liked that movie, and I'm gonna tell you, there's a whole lot of truth in it. I have a friend who submitted her novel to a major publisher, and they felt her characters weren't Black enough. And she writes about African American characters who are affluent. They're judges, they're congressmen. She writes those type of characters, all of the characters. And, some people read it and think, oh, that's just unbelievable. No, it's not. I can't tell you how many lawyers and doctors I have in my family. I don't know. I don't know what kind of Black people you're used to. But so that movie was right on point. It was right on point.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I thought about it, and when you think about these different professions, a lot of times we only see we're on the outside looking in, but I think it was very nice to look from the inside looking out. And yeah, I thought it was a great movie, and Monk's brother was off the chain. That's all I'll say about that one. But other than that, yeah, great movie, and thank you for that professional insight on it.
Well, since you saw that movie, do you remember the scene when he's writing and the characters, you got one here and one there? That's what it feels like. It's like, what you say? Okay, what?
Yeah, okay. Right.
No, you can't do that. Oh my God. I find myself doing that when I'm writing. So
that's real. That's real. Okay. That lends more credibility. I think I'm gonna go back. Sometimes when you watch a movie the second time, you pick up things you didn't see the first time. But I do remember that scene, and now I'm gonna go back and watch it again based off getting input from a professional like yourself. So thank you.
Thank you.
I like the way that movie ended.
Yeah,
it was a nice ending.
Yeah, I didn't have too much other than, like I said, let me know if you need any sci-fi recommendations. That's my favorite genre. I'm very excited to see what you do.
Oh, that's
in terms
good to
of
know. Thank you.
Dipping into that side of the storytelling.
I don't think I'll touch fantasy though. You know, fairies and all of that stuff is just.
We do need more Black fantasy. I mean,
I am. I'll ponder on that.
All right, Jessica, give us some final thoughts before we close out. Just any words of inspiration. You've given us a lot, believe me. You get the final word.
Okay. Love many, trust few. Learn to paddle your own canoe.
Booyah. All right. Yes. All right. You all heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jessica Tillis. We are the Thought Brothers, and we are out of here. Until next time.
Thank you.
you.